Smoke choked the narrow corridor, curling in thick black clouds that burned the eyes and made every breath a battle. Sparks rained from a ruptured power conduit, and alarms shrieked like metal monsters trapped in a cage. Captain Elias Vorn's boots slammed against the scorched floor as he ran, heart hammering. Something moved ahead in the shadows, something small and trembling but alive. He ducked under a falling beam, feeling the heat singe his hair, and caught sight of a tiny shape huddled near the wall. It was a hatchling no bigger than a child, with scales blackened by ash and wings folded tight against its frail body. Its eyes were dull, empty, as if the world had already forgotten it. A strange, faint hum vibrated from its chest, almost like a heartbeat out of sync with reality. Elias' chest tightened. "Not today," he muttered, reaching down. The moment his fingers brushed the hatchling's scales, the floor shuddered violently. A section of the ceiling collapsed just behind him. Instinct took over. He scooped up the creature, tucking it carefully against his chest. The hatchling made no noise, no hiss, no whimper, only a faint glow under its eyes that flickered like a dying star. He had to move fast. Elias sprinted toward the emergency exit, dodging sparks and chunks of falling metal. Every second mattered. Behind him, the smoke thickened, and a strange whining sound echoed through the corridor, as if the station itself was alive and angry. The hatchling shivered in his arms. It wasn't just afraid, it seemed lost, like it had been abandoned in a world that didn't want it. He reached a bulkhead door, but it was jammed. The alarm blared louder and a tremor ran through the floor, throwing him off balance. Elias slammed his shoulder against it, grit and desperation fueling each strike. On the third try, the door groaned open, and he stumbled into the stairwell beyond, the hatchling clinging to his chest like a fragile secret. A flicker of light caught his eye. The hatchling's scales shimmered in soft blues and silvers, almost like it was reacting to the emergency lights. He realized its faint glow pulsed with its tiny breathing, an emotional signal, subtle but alive. A small surge of hope sparked in him. "Hang on," he whispered, pressing forward, dodging the falling steps and sparks that danced like fireflies gone mad. Halfway down, a sudden jolt threw him against the wall. Gravity had gone haywire. One moment he was running on flat steps, the next he was sliding sideways down a tilted platform. He gritted his teeth, adjusting his grip on the hatchling, careful not to crush it, careful not to drop it. It flailed slightly, wings twitching as if testing something deep inside, though it still didn't make a sound. Elias hit the final stairwell landing, smoke clawing at his throat, and saw the exit, a hatch leading to the observation deck. He dashed forward, praying the structure would hold. Behind him, a massive section of the station groaned, metal twisting as if it might collapse entirely. The hatchling, still cradled in his arms, seemed to pulse brighter. He could feel its tiny heartbeat, erratic and weak, yet stubbornly alive. A gust of wind blasted through the open hatch, carrying with it the scent of scorched metal and strange alien ozone. Elias froze. Outside, the asteroid's surface stretched wide under a sky of stars, but something moved, something large and shadowed, circling just beyond the deck. It was not human. Not fully. A ripple of unease crawled up his spine. The hatchling twitched violently in his arms, and for the first time, it opened its mouth. Not a hiss, not a cry, but a tiny trembling sound that matched the hum Elias had felt before. Its eyes flickered, brighter than before, and he caught the faintest hint of what looked like a smile or maybe recognition. Elias' stomach dropped as the shadow loomed closer. Whatever it was, it didn't look friendly. He glanced down at the hatchling, determination hardening his jaw. "I've got you," he said, voice firm. "No one's taking you, not today." A deafening roar erupted from the shadow above, and the hatchling stiffened, wings flaring slightly. Elias' grip tightened. He realized in that moment that this tiny, fragile creature might hold more power than he could imagine. But for now, it depended entirely on him. And then, without warning, the hatchling's glow flared brighter than the emergency lights, casting long, flickering shadows across the observation deck. The strange shadow recoiled, and Elias felt a shiver of hope and fear. Whatever had been circling them had noticed the hatchling. It wasn't just lost and weak, it was dangerous and it was being hunted. Elias swallowed, chest tight, adrenaline hammering. He took a deep breath, bracing himself. One wrong move and both he and the hatchling could be gone. But he wouldn't let that happen. Not now. Not ever. The shadow moved again, faster this time, and Elias realized with a jolt. This was only the beginning. The shadow lingered just beyond the observation deck, an enormous form twisting in the pale starlight. Elias tightened his grip on the hatchling, feeling its tiny heartbeat hammer against his chest. The creature wasn't just fragile, it was extraordinary. Its faint glow pulsed like a living signal, hinting at abilities he couldn't yet understand. And whatever had been circling them wasn't going to give up. The deck shuddered beneath him. Pieces of scorched metal rattled loose and clattered to the floor, echoing like distant thunder. Elias took a slow, deliberate step back toward the stairwell, scanning for anything that could serve as cover. The shadow moved again, faster this time, its bulk stretching impossibly across the deck. It wasn't human. It wasn't entirely animal. Its shape suggested a predator designed for intelligence as much as strength, with eyes glinting like molten silver in the faint light. "We need to move," Elias muttered under his breath. He could feel the hatchling stir, wings twitching slightly as if testing him, gauging the danger. Its hum grew louder, like it was trying to communicate, but he had no idea what it meant. He couldn't risk standing still. Not when they were out in the open, vulnerable to whatever had been hunting this hatchling. With a deep breath, he sprinted back toward the ship's interior, taking the hatchling along, keeping it close. The metal floor was slick with ash and sparks, forcing him to move carefully, even as adrenaline screamed at him to run faster. He glanced behind. Something moved in the shadows, skimming along the observation windows, following them. It didn't rush, but it didn't need to. It knew they couldn't outrun it forever. Elias rounded a corner into a maintenance corridor, the smell of burned circuits thick in the air. Here, the station's gravity was unstable, and small sections of the floor tilted unexpectedly. One misstep could send him, and the hatchling, plummeting into the lower levels. The hatchling's tiny claws dug into his jacket instinctively. Elias realized then how delicate it was, how easily it could be crushed or injured. Every move mattered. A sudden alarm echoed, a secondary alert, harsher this time. He froze. Something else had entered the station. Footsteps? Or mechanical trackers? He couldn't tell, but the sound was deliberate, measured, approaching. "We're not alone," he whispered. The hatchling stirred in response, a faint glow tracing the edges of its scales. It was reacting to danger in a way Elias couldn't yet explain, but it was real and it was helping. He pressed forward, ducking into a storage bay and shutting the door behind him. The room was cramped, stacked with crates of tools and mining supplies. He placed the hatchling gently on a crate, giving it room to move, and watched as it cautiously explored its surroundings. Its wings unfurled slightly, delicate and fragile, and it emitted a soft hum that seemed almost like a song. Elias felt a pang of hope. The creature was alive, curious and slowly awakening. Then the door shuddered violently. Whoever, or whatever, was outside wasn't giving up. Elias grabbed a wrench from a nearby crate, holding it like a weapon, though he knew it would barely hurt anything of significant size. "Hang on," he murmured to the hatchling. The creature looked at him, and for the first time he thought he saw recognition in its eyes. Not fear, recognition. Something clicked between them, an unspoken understanding that he was trying to protect it, and it needed him to act. The corridor outside erupted with noise. Heavy, mechanical footsteps mixed with low growls, and sparks flew as a small drone burst through the ceiling above, scanning for movement. Elias reacted immediately, flipping the crate to block the doorway and giving the hatchling a momentary shield. The drone hissed and attempted to hover around the obstruction, but Elias slammed it with the wrench, short-circuiting its sensors. Small victories mattered in situations like this. He needed a plan. The hatchling couldn't survive a direct confrontation with these predators. Elias looked around and spotted the crew's personal transport pods, docked just a few meters down the hall. If he could get the hatchling inside one, he could move them to the outer sections of the station or even off-planet. He grabbed the hatchling and bolted, dodging sparks, chunks of debris, and a sudden burst of flame from the damaged conduit above. The hatchling shivered violently, then curled into his chest, a faint warmth radiating from its tiny body. Its glow pulsed stronger with every step, and Elias realized something remarkable. It was reacting to his courage, to his determination. He had expected fear, but instead he found life, resilience, and a spark of trust in this fragile creature. As he reached the transport pods, a massive shadow fell across the corridor, stopping him cold. The predator had followed them inside, silent until now. Its eyes gleamed, fixed on the hatchling. Elias took a step forward, heart pounding, and shouted to draw its attention, giving the hatchling a chance to move. The creature hesitated, then for the first time, it moved on its own, scuttling toward a pod. Its small legs were awkward but determined, and Elias sprinted alongside, nudging it toward safety. The predator lunged, but the hatchling flared its tiny wings in instinctive defense, emitting a soft, pulsing hum that made the shadow falter. Elias grabbed the pod's hatch and slammed it shut just as the predator swiped with a claw, tearing a chunk of metal where his hand had been. Pain seared through his palm, but he ignored it. Inside, the hatchling looked up at him, eyes wide, glowing faintly in the pod's interior light. It was safe for now. Elias pressed the launch button. The pod detached with a hiss, drifting away from the station's chaos. He exhaled, chest heaving, and looked at the hatchling. It made a tiny chirp, almost like a laugh, and its glow brightened in response to his voice. A small victory, a fragile, shining moment of hope amid the fire and ruin. But as the pod floated through the asteroid field, a sharp alert on the console made Elias' stomach drop. Multiple ships were converging on their location, faster than expected. The predator from the station wasn't alone. They had company. Elias tightened his grip on the hatchling, his mind racing. "We're not out yet," he whispered. The creature looked up at him, and for the first time, its faint hum seemed almost like a question. "Can you keep me safe?" Elias' jaw set, determination flaring. "Yes," he said, voice steady. "I won't let anything stop us." A sudden flash outside the pod window made him jerk back. Another ship had just appeared from the shadows of the asteroid belt, massive, dark, and bristling with unknown weaponry. The hatchling twitched violently, wings flaring as its glow pulsed brighter than ever. Elias swallowed hard. This was no longer just survival. This was a fight, and whatever came next would push both human and hatchling to their limits. The pod drifted through the asteroid belt, shaking from every near collision with jagged rock and stray debris. Elias pressed himself against the wall, gripping the hatchling with one arm and scanning the console with the other. Red alert lights flashed, warning of multiple enemy ships closing in fast. Their design was alien, sleek, black, and angular, with weapons that hummed like trapped thunder. He realized with a sinking feeling that these weren't just hunters, they were soldiers. And they knew exactly what they were after. The hatchling stirred in his arms, wings flicking with nervous energy. Its faint glow pulsed in rhythm with its heartbeat, and Elias noticed something strange. The light seemed to respond to the nearby ships. When one vessel fired a pulse of scanning energy, the hatchling's glow flared, bright and sharp, almost like it was warning him. He had never seen a creature react like this before. It was more than instinct. It was intelligence. "What are you?" Elias whispered, pressing the hatchling closer. He could feel its tiny body trembling, but there was a stubborn spark in its eyes, a hint that it hadn't given up despite everything. He realized it was trying to tell him something. Maybe it could communicate in ways he didn't yet understand. The pod jolted violently as a pulse from one of the enemy ships grazed its hull. Sparks flew across the console and warning lights stuttered. Elias slammed his palm down on the controls, overriding the damage. The hatchling flared its wings suddenly, sending a faint wave of energy that pulsed through the pod. The screens flickered, showing an unexpected result. The enemy ships paused, their weapons stuttering mid-scan as if confused or repelled by the hatchling's presence. Elias' eyes widened. The hatchling wasn't just fragile. It had power. A strange, raw power that he couldn't yet control or fully understand, but it was real. "You've got abilities," he said, awe creeping into his voice. "And I think you're trying to show me something." He had no time to dwell. The ships began moving again, adjusting their approach with terrifying precision. Elias swore under his breath. He had to act fast. But how do you fight an enemy vastly stronger than you, when the only weapon you have is a creature that doesn't even speak yet? Then it happened. The hatchling's eyes glowed brighter, and its hum intensified into a series of soft, vibrating tones that resonated against the pod's walls. Elias instinctively pressed his head against the creature, feeling the vibrations like a pulse through his skull. Suddenly, vivid images flashed in his mind, visions not his own. He saw towering crystalline ruins, alien landscapes bathed in turquoise light, and creatures like the hatchling moving gracefully among the structures. And then, a family. The hatchling's family. Large, majestic dragons, all covered in iridescent scales, their eyes full of intelligence and warmth. Elias stumbled back, clutching his head. What is this?" he gasped. The hatchling chirped softly, nudging him, and he realized the visions were being projected intentionally. It wanted him to see, to understand. His chest tightened with emotion. This small, orphan creature had lost everything, and yet it was reaching out, trying to connect with him across the gap between species. But the moment was interrupted by a sharp alarm. One of the enemy ships fired a concentrated beam directly at the pod. Sparks exploded on the hull, and Elias slammed the hatchling down onto a padded console for safety. The creature's wings flared instinctively, and the energy pulsing from it grew violent, strong enough that the pod shuddered under the force. The beam deflected slightly, missing its intended path. Elias stared, mouth open. The hatchling had just saved them, unknowingly or not, from certain destruction. He quickly realized something else. It wasn't random. The hatchling's energy seemed connected to him. Its pulses synchronized with his focus, his decisions, his intent. Every time he acted with determination, the creature reacted in a way that helped. Every hesitation weakened the effect. He had a partner, not just a passenger. Elias took a deep breath and made a bold decision. He could try to outrun the ships and hope for safety, or he could use the hatchling's strange abilities to fight back, to turn the tables. He chose the latter. "Okay," he whispered, voice firm. "We do this together." He tapped into the pod's navigation system, setting a course through a narrow cluster of asteroids, a risky maneuver designed to force the enemy ships into collisions. The hatchling's glow pulsed brighter as if it understood. Elias maneuvered sharply, weaving through the rocks. The ships followed, weapons firing, but each time the hatchling's pulses interfered with the enemy targeting systems. One by one, the ships grazed asteroids, staggering and losing formation. Elias felt a surge of hope. They could survive this. Then came the unexpected twist. Through the pod's viewport, he saw a massive shape rising from the shadows of a nearby asteroid, a creature larger and more imposing than any ship. Its scales shimmered like black glass, and its eyes glowed the same silvery hue as the enemy vessels. But this was no machine. It moved with intent, alive and powerful, and it was heading straight for them. The hatchling stiffened violently, wings flaring in alarm. Its glow reached an intensity that illuminated the pod's interior like daylight. Elias' heart sank. He understood immediately. The hatchling's family, or what was left of it, was here, but they weren't allies. Not yet. And if Elias didn't act fast, both he and the hatchling could be destroyed before they even had a chance to escape. He swallowed, chest tight, and whispered to the tiny dragon, "We're going to get through this. Together." The hatchling chirped back, a trembling, determined sound, and Elias felt the faintest brush of hope. Whatever was coming, he had no choice but to face it. And as the massive shadow lunged closer, the pod jolted violently. An asteroid clipped their path. Sparks flew. The hatchling's glow flared like a warning. Elias realized, with a sinking feeling, that the real challenge had only just begun. The pod shook violently as the massive shadow surged closer, its immense claws scraping the asteroid belt's jagged edges. Elias pressed his back against the console, holding the hatchling tight against his chest. Its glow pulsed in tandem with his heartbeat, bright, erratic, alive. He could feel its energy vibrating through his arms, a strange warmth mixed with raw power. Whatever this creature was, it wasn't just fragile. It was capable of destruction on a scale he could barely imagine. The enemy ships regained their composure, weapons flashing again, aiming directly at the pod. Elias swallowed hard, scanning the asteroid field. There was no way to outrun them all. Any maneuver could send them smashing into a rock, and the hatchling would be crushed instantly. He clenched his jaw. There was only one choice: confrontation. "Listen to me," he whispered to the hatchling, voice steady despite the chaos. "We fight smart, not strong." The creature twitched in response, wings flaring slightly. Elias realized then that it could sense his intent, its power amplified by his courage, his decisions. He nodded to himself, drawing on every ounce of focus. The pod veered sharply toward a narrow cluster of asteroids, smaller than the previous course. The enemy ships followed blindly, engines blazing, firing volleys of plasma that seared the void. Elias gritted his teeth, twisting the controls. The hatchling's glow intensified, sending a pulse of energy outward. The nearest enemy ship shuddered violently, its systems flickering, weapons misfiring. A small victory, but only the first. Then came the massive shadow. Elias froze for half a heartbeat, awe and terror mixing in his chest. It was the same species as the hatchling, but enormous, covered in black iridescent scales, eyes glowing silver. Its wings spanned wider than any pod could contain, and its roar echoed across the asteroid belt like thunder. The hatchling flinched, but its glow did not fade. Instead, it pulsed stronger, almost as if defying the larger creature. Elias acted on instinct. He nudged the pod forward, weaving directly between the massive alien's legs, a tight gamble that could crush them if miscalculated. Sparks flew as rocks clipped the hull, but the pod held. The hatchling, sensing the maneuver, flared its wings fully, and a wave of energy radiated outward. The massive alien roared, rearing back as if surprised and pained. Elias' heart leapt. They had a chance. "Focus," he shouted, voice ringing over the alarms. "Use your strength." The hatchling's glow pulsed violently, expanding outward, washing over the enemy ships. Their targeting systems failed completely. One by one they veered off course, crashing into asteroids or spinning out into the void. Elias couldn't believe it. This tiny creature, scared and fragile a few hours ago, was controlling the battlefield. But the massive alien wasn't done. It circled, wings beating, creating a windstorm of debris that rocked the pod. Elias held the hatchling close, feeling the warmth of its tiny body, the hum of its energy filling the pod like a resonating drum. The hatchling's eyes locked with his. He realized then, it wasn't just reacting to him, it was trusting him, willing him to survive, teaching him how to guide its power. Elias made a decision that would either save them or doom them. He aimed the pod at a tight gap in the asteroid cluster, a canyon barely wide enough to fit through. If the massive alien followed, it would be trapped. If he miscalculated, the pod would be crushed. He exhaled, heart hammering, and pressed the pod forward. The alien pursued, claws reaching, wings thrashing. The hatchling flared its wings again, energy radiating outward. A pulse shot through the canyon, and the alien slammed against the walls, screeching in frustration. Elias gritted his teeth, maintaining course, dodging rocks, and guiding the hatchling's energy with instinct and determination. Finally they cleared the canyon. The massive alien roared in defeat, retreating into the shadowed expanse of the asteroid belt. Elias slumped back, chest heaving, and looked down at the hatchling. Its wings twitched, body glowing softly now, exhausted but alive. For the first time, it let out a sound that resembled a laugh, a faint, musical trill. Elias smiled, a rush of relief washing over him. "You did it," he whispered. "We did it, together." The hatchling chirped again, nudging him with its tiny snout. It was the first moment of connection, trust, and joy since the beginning of their ordeal. Elias realized the bond between them had become more than survival. It was companionship, mutual reliance, and courage facing impossible odds. But just as he exhaled fully, a new alert flared on the pod's console. A signal, faint but unmistakable, pulsed from deep within the asteroid belt. The hatchling stiffened, wings flaring slightly. Elias leaned closer, heart tightening. Whatever this signal was, it was coming from its homeworld, or what remained of it. And it wasn't just a beacon. It carried intelligence, intent, and possibly danger. The hatchling chirped softly, a note of curiosity mixed with caution. Elias looked down, eyes locking with its glowing gaze. "Looks like our journey isn't over," he said, a mix of excitement and dread in his voice. Not by a long shot. Outside the pod, the void was quiet now, broken only by the distant spark of enemy wreckage and the glinting asteroid field. But the sense of impending challenge lingered. The hatchling's tiny chest heaved in rhythm with his own heartbeat. It was alive, whole for the first time in months, and yet, the universe had more tests in store. Elias tightened his grip one last time. "Whatever comes next," he said, determination radiating from every word, "we face it together. Nothing can break us." The hatchling's glow pulsed, almost in agreement, almost like a promise. And in that moment, as the pod drifted silently toward the unknown depths of the asteroid belt, Elias realized the truth. Humans might be fragile in a galaxy full of monsters and mysteries, but courage, intelligence, and heart could turn the impossible into survival. Then, without warning, the pod's sensors detected movement beyond the asteroid belt. Not ships. Not shadows. Something alive. Something massive. Something that might not recognize them as friends. Elias froze. The hatchling shivered against him, wings flaring slightly. The next challenge had arrived, and it was bigger than anything either of them had faced. The pod floated silently through the black expanse of space, the wreckage of enemy ships drifting behind them like fallen shadows. Elias sat back against the console, exhaustion clawing at his limbs, but he didn't dare let go of the hatchling. Its tiny body rested against his chest, wings folded, eyes glowing softly with a mix of curiosity and trust. For the first time since he found it in the ashes, it looked calm. Alive. Safe. He glanced down at the hatchling and smiled. Its faint hum vibrated through the pod, a gentle rhythm that seemed almost like contentment. It had learned to trust him, and in return he had learned to trust it. 4 months, it had been alone, abandoned, a fragile flicker of life in a galaxy that had forgotten it. Now, it was whole, or at least as whole as it could be in a universe that had already tried to take everything away. The hatchling chirped softly, tilting its head as if testing the sound of its own voice. Elias laughed quietly, a low sound that echoed through the pod. "You've got a long way to go, little one," he said. "But we'll figure it out. Together." Its tiny wings fluttered in response, brushing against his forearm, and he felt the warmth of life radiating through him. It wasn't just survival anymore. It was a beginning. A soft light flickered on the pod's console. The faint signal that had pulsed through the asteroid belt earlier was still active, now clearer, almost rhythmic. Elias frowned, leaning closer. The hatchling stiffened slightly, wings twitching. He recognized the pattern now, not a warning. A call. A message. From its homeworld, or at least what remained of it. His heart tightened. The journey wasn't over. The galaxy still held mysteries, dangers, and truths that the hatchling had yet to reveal. But Elias allowed himself a small moment of victory. They had survived impossible odds. Enemy ships, a massive predator, and the chaotic asteroid belt. The hatchling had survived too, for the first time in months, without fear freezing its tiny body. And it had smiled, if only faintly, if only for a moment. That small, trembling smile was a miracle to him, proof that hope could exist even in the darkest corners of the galaxy. Elias reached over and adjusted the pod's life support settings, keeping the hatchling warm and safe. It chirped again, a delicate, almost musical sound, and he realized that the creature was learning, growing, and responding to its new environment. Its eyes brightened as if recognizing its first home since being orphaned, a home built not of planets or nests, but of trust, courage, and care. The memory of the station's fire, the collapsing corridors, and the terrifying predator came back to him in flashes. Every decision he had made, every risk he had taken, had led to this fragile moment of peace. And yet, peace in the galaxy was always temporary. Elias understood that better than anyone. But for now he allowed himself to simply be human, tired, relieved, and proud. He whispered softly to the hatchling, "You're safe now. And we'll make sure it stays that way." The hatchling chirped back, leaning into his chest, wings brushing against him like a small heartbeat of reassurance. It was more than trust, it was connection. A bond formed through danger, courage, and the determination to protect life, no matter how small or fragile. Elias stood and looked out the viewport. Stars stretched endlessly, distant and indifferent, but a faint pulse glimmered in the darkness beyond the asteroid belt, the signal from the hatchling's world. It wasn't clear what awaited them there, but for the first time he felt ready to face it. Not because he was fearless, but because he had the strength to care, to protect, and to act when others could not. That was the essence of being human, and he felt it burning fiercely inside him. He crouched beside the hatchling, speaking gently. "One day we'll answer that signal. One day we'll see where you came from." The creature responded with a soft trill, curling closer, its wings brushing against his arm. Its glow pulsed softly in agreement, as if promising that it would wait, trust, and learn along the way. Elias allowed himself a small smile. They had survived the impossible, and they had grown stronger together. But even in this fragile peace, the galaxy whispered of more dangers, more challenges, and more mysteries. The faint signal pulsing in the distance was only the beginning. Whatever lay on the other side of that beacon could change everything. The fate of the hatchling, the humans who protected it, and the universe itself. Elias tightened his grip one last time, feeling the tiny creature tremble with excitement and curiosity. "We'll be ready," he said softly, his voice firm with conviction. "No matter what comes next, we'll face it together. And we won't fail." The hatchling chirped once more, a tiny, joyful sound, and Elias realized that in this small, glowing life, he had found hope, courage, and a reminder of everything humans could achieve. The pod drifted silently into the shadows of the asteroid belt, carrying two survivors who had endured impossible odds. Elias felt the weight of the galaxy pressing around them, but he also felt something stronger, the indomitable spark of humanity, intelligence, empathy, courage, and determination. The hatchling had survived, and he had ensured it would continue to thrive. As they passed the faint pulse of the distant signal, the hatchling's glow flickered brighter for a brief moment, as if sensing the adventure waiting ahead. Elias smiled, eyes on the stars. They had survived the fire, the predators, and the chaos, but the universe had more tests in store. And he was ready. Because humans didn't give up. Humans protected life. Humans acted when others couldn't. And together, a human and a tiny dragon hatchling could face anything, even the mysteries of a lost world pulsing somewhere in the black void ahead. And somewhere deep in the asteroid belt, a faint ripple of movement stirred, another shadow, another force, waiting, watching, and hinting that the adventure was far from over.